Right, good evening. We are excited to welcome UT Southwestern Medical School here to talk with us today. So Jenna, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenna Steinle. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions here at UT Southwestern. And this is our first one that we are doing with you guys. And so we're really excited. Hope to get a lot of questions answered. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen in just a minute and go through a presentation of just what we can offer. We want to, get you guys excited for medicine, but then also get you excited for our school as well. And then I'll stop sharing after that, and then we can open it up for some questions. Just a little bit about myself. I have been in higher education for my entire career, and I've been here at UT Southwestern for about 3 years. And so just excited to get to know you guys and answer any questions. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, if I can just get a thumbs up that you guys can see my screen.
Yep, I see your screen.
Great. All right. So one of the things that we like to talk about is that if medicine is your dream, that we want you to make a plan. Now, each one of you on this call, you may be starting out as a freshman, so you may have a different journey. You may be just now switching careers, doing post-bac. So all of this is going to be relevant to you. There's a lot of things that are going to make sense and a lot of things that are not. So the academic requirements, obviously MCAT, prereqs, those can be found on our website, and then the CASPER. So it's really important as you are starting your journey to look and see what exams, what scores that a school has. Not every school requires the CASPER. At this point in time, we do. So we just like to put this in here so that every student knows. So in addition to academics, setting a goal is really important. What kind of character traits make an excellent physician? So some of the things that we look for are leadership, teamwork, resilience, commitment to excellence. And really one of the main things is, why is it that you want to become a doctor? What is the medical motivation? So exploring your major, what are you interested in? A lot of students want to major in a science, and that is really great. That's where you're going to get a lot of your prereqs done. But we also encourage students to take liberal arts classes as well. We really feel that that kind of helps make you a more well-rounded individual. There's going to be so many courses that are science related that you're going to be taking in medical school, and just want to encourage every student that while we want you to do well in your prereqs, we want you to do well in all courses. You can minor in so many different subjects. So kind of diving into the kind of extracurricular activities, we want you to get involved in things that you're interested in. Our committee is looking for the depth. So if you are somebody that's getting involved in a lot of different areas, that's really great, but we really want to see a strong commitment. So if you can have a strong commitment to fewer tasks, that is a lot better than having just a laundry list of items. If you like athletics, music, cooking, if you like getting involved at your local animal shelter, that would be something that we would encourage you to get involved in. Also pre-med clubs, any kind of on-campus organizations as well. So one of the areas that a lot of students ask us about is research. So that is not something that we are saying you must have to come to UT Southwestern. I think that that is a common misconception, that that is a requirement. If that is an area that you are interested in and you think that it applies to the journey that you want to go on, then absolutely get involved in that. However, that is not a requirement. What really we are looking for is, do you have that patient experience? We really value physician shadowing. So if you are someone that has not had any of that and you are looking to apply, you want to go ahead and start making a plan to shadow. Any type of work or employment or volunteer is something that we are looking for in a healthcare setting. We know that people don't like to always give up their summers, but you really want to maximize those. We are looking to see, did you use your time wisely? If you had this many hours in a summer, what did you give your time doing? And that's going to look different for every student. If you needed to work, then that's fine. We want to be able to see what you did. So our admissions mission, we would like to produce inspired, knowledgeable, responsible, and humanistic physicians. We want to train primary care physicians, prepare doctors who will practice in underserved areas of Texas, and fully prepare medical students who seek careers in academic medicine and research. So as we kind of talk about why you want to be a doctor, it's also important to think about who you are as a person and kind of finding the right fit. You want to make sure that you are learning what is this school's mission and is who they want to produce in a position somebody that I want to become. And being able to find schools that line up with that is really important so that when it comes time to apply, that you're applying to those schools and you know about that. When it comes to scheduling the interview, you want to be able to know that school's mission so that in that interview setting, if you are asked, why did you apply here? Does your mission of why you want to be a doctor align up with our mission of who we want to prepare you to be? Do those things line up together? So a little bit about the application process. So for out-of-state students looking to apply to UT Southwestern or any school in Texas, you will have to apply through TMD SAS. So that's going to be the Texas Medical and Dental Schools Application Service. The primary application opens every year, May 1st. The application used to close November 1st. This year is the first year that it's actually going to be closing on October 1st. You must first submit a primary application through TMD SAS, and then it's followed by a secondary application through the UT Southwestern website. Now, some schools pick and choose who gets a secondary. We do not. Every student that fills out the primary application through TMD SAS also gets a secondary. So you want to make sure as you're looking to apply at each school, which schools have a secondary, which schools don't. We would also encourage students to apply early. So that can also look different for every single one of you. But that would be making sure that your primary application, secondary application, MCAT, CASPER, all of those are lined up in a way that you're getting them completed in an early time frame. We will not review an application until every single document is in. So we have some students that will they will apply whenever the application opens May 1st. Those applications start getting transmitted to us about May 15th. Then they might submit a secondary, we'll say that's June or July, but they don't have their MCAT or CASPER scheduled until, we'll say, August, September. So even though you feel like you've applied through TMD SAS in May, if we don't get your CASPER in until August or September, we will not review your application. So those are just some things to keep in mind. So a little bit of a snapshot of kind of an application timeline of when we would encourage you to take your MCAT, when applications are accepted, when the interview season begins, and then the offer period begins around mid-October. So a little bit about our evaluation process. It is a holistic application process. So we are initially screening applications for academic factors and also looking at the alignment with the mission of the school. So that's where we are looking on your application, reading your medical motivation essay. Then that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the application and how we are reviewing the rest of your materials and things like that. So just to kind of give you a numerical amount, we usually get around 5,000 to 6,000 applications each cycle. From that 5,000 to 6,000, we send out interview invitations around 800. Then following that, we are actually sending out acceptance letters to the 350 to 400 applicants. And then we have a class size each year of 230 to 240 students. So from the 5,000 to 6,000 applicants down to 230, 240 spots for our entering class. All of our interviews are virtual. Interviews are August through January. Right now, interviews are scheduled on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And we have a traditional format where you are interviewed by 2 faculty members, and it's for 25 minutes each. Your file goes to an admissions committee, and they actually discuss each applicant. A little bit more about the holistic evaluation. So again, looking at the metrics first, MCAT, GPA, the quality and rigor of the courses that you have taken, Casper. One metric alone really, we feel, does not tell the entire story, but we really need to make sure that you know how to be a student, that you are a strong student. You want to focus on now, what are those techniques that work for you to study? And if you don't have any good techniques, are there ones that you can start to pick up on now? Then once we look at the metrics going into your experiences, healthcare and your non-healthcare, looking at, did you have any employment, looking at your volunteer work. This is a really good point where we want to know who you are outside of medicine. So if you are interested in areas outside of medicine, that helps us know a little bit more about you, know what you're passionate about, know that whenever maybe you get out of work, what are those things you like to be involved in that help to kind of fill your cup up so that you can turn around and give back. And then looking at the personal attributes, what you have come over in life. So do you have that grit? Have there been hardships that you have actually overcome? If you and your family have gone through something, we have a lot of students that they leave gaps on their application. So if there's a time frame that you were doing a shadowing and you stopped, so if you did a certain number of hours, maybe your first year during undergrad, and then maybe your second year, but then your third year, you really didn't have anything medically that you did. There was no volunteer, but maybe it's because that you were going through something. You need to be able to kind of spell that out. We want to be able to know that full story, and that kind of helps our committee know a little bit more about you. So a little bit more about the holistic consideration. Again, going over the academic factors, alignment with the school, Casper, rigor of the undergraduate curriculum. And in addition, we also get 3 letters of recommendation from either college advisors or a faculty member. Being able to really know that you have personal integrity, compassion for others, those are really, really important for us. So this is not really the end all be all list. It's just some points that we want our students to be able to think about. So this is the application service that every school in Texas is going to use, the TMD SAS. They have a lot of resources that students can use. There is one tool that is a coursework tool that if you are unsure, is my course going to actually transfer in? If TMD SAS actually accepts that in, then we will as well. So this was our class profile for the entering class of 2028. This is always a really important slide and what students really they're wanting to see. So our class size last year was 230. The average GPA was a 3.89. Average MCAT was a 516 over the course of 74 undergraduate schools. And then you can see our 17% of the underrepresented minorities, and then 58% female, 42% male. Now, on the average GPA and the average MCAT, that is obviously accepting in students that have higher and lower. So that is not you have to have a 516 in order to be looked at, reviewed, anything like that. That's just the average for what our class was this past year. If you did any post-bac work, that is going to be included into your overall GPA. And so sometimes that can actually be really helpful to a student. So the curriculum, we have our pre-clerkship, core clinical clerkships, and then the post. So this is a pass-fail curriculum. We really feel that our students have enjoyed once we transition to a pass-fail. During the pre-clerkship phase, there's a lot more integration. Our students are able to get clinical experiences earlier on. We see a lot more individual growth, and then we actually have a lot more room for scholarly activities. And you'll kind of see a visual of what it looks like on this slide here. So your pre-clerkship will be 18 months, followed by another 18 months of your clerkship, and then your post. So one thing during your pre-clerkship, you'll see the words academic colleges. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But this is where you're going to meet weekly with them. And then during your clerkship, you're going to be meeting monthly. So you will be divided up from your entering class of 230 or 240. You will be divided up into an academic college. And we usually like to call those the Harry Potter houses. They're very similar. And then you'll have a smaller group from there with a faculty mentor. This is probably what we hear the most from our students. It's beneficial to them, that they really enjoy, and where they learn the most. And having that one-on-one time with the faculty mentor has been really, I would say, crucial, but it's been a great experience. And then during the clerkship, where you will see the scholarly activity, that is kind of a designated research time. And we have some different tracks that students can choose, but you will actually be able to have a specified time to do some research that our students really enjoy as well. So the 6 different colleges are Cary, Estabrook, Fashina, Pritchard, Selden, and Sprague. And so kind of how we talked about that they are like a house, they're a different color, they do competitions against each other, just kind of makes a big family there. Our students really enjoy that. So the scholarly activity, this different tracks that you can do is going to be the basic research, clinical and translational research, quality improvement, global health, community health, and medical education. So they seem pretty broad, but whatever area that you might be interested in, we can customize it to fit underneath one of these tracks here. So one of the things that I think really stands out for UT Southwestern is that we don't really compete with other schools in having our students be in the hospitals. There are certain areas in Texas where there are multiple medical schools, and so they are limited on spots to get their students in the hospitals. We don't have another medical school that's actually in the Dallas area that we have to compete against. And so our students get a lot of hands-on. So we have our Clements University Hospital. We have Parkland, which is our county hospital. We have Children's Health or Children's Medical. We have the VA, Texas Health Resources, and then so many different hospitals just kind of across the area as far as Fort Worth, all the way up to Wichita Falls, Waco, Richardson, Plano, and Frisco. Our UT Southwestern SIM Center opened in August of 2018. when our students come on campus for a tour, we actually take them there and they can kind of do some hands-on experience. And we find that our students really enjoy this. Not only do we feel that it's one of a kind, but whenever our students are actually a student there and they're going to the sim center, they're learning so much. And we're able to get our students into the sim center earlier than other schools are. So that's something that we think kind of sets us apart a little bit. So one area that we're really excited about is our team-based learning. This actually used to be part of our library and it was converted into our TBL space. So it actually holds the entire class. And so you're situated into a small group setting. You know, it used to be that medicine was what can I bring to the table? And now it's kind of transitioned to a team-based learning. And so you're working with individuals from all different areas. So we want our students to start from day one, being able to work with people that are just like them, but being able to say, hey, you're going into this specialty and, you know, we may have to work together someday. So how do we incorporate our specialties into one? So just this is a snapshot of what our academic colleges that we talked about, the college commons. So there's kind of a main area, there's a place for the white coats, there's a kitchen, lots of different learning spaces for our students to go to, kind of their home away from home. If you walked by at any point in the day, there would be students in there. It's a really, really fun space. So a little bit of our class, this previous match class, you can kind of see where our students match to. So really the whole point in going to a medical school is, am I going to be able to match to a residency program? And I feel like our students that come here, we have almost 100% match rate. That's very, very high. And that would be in comparison to the nation. So obviously you can see on here that our students are matching really a lot to the internal medicine, OMFS, and then psychiatry. So lots of neat areas, lots of ways that our students can stay at UT Southwestern as well. But that just kind of gives you a little snapshot. These are just some areas that our students have come from in the past. And then another snapshot of where they have matched to. So 50% have gotten their first choice in residency, and then 85% have gotten in their top 3. And then over on the left side, it kind of shows some of the programs kind of spelled out. So again, some staying at UT Southwestern, and then kind of so forth and so on. Brigham and Williams, Boston Children's. I think that our students that come to UT Southwestern and being able to say that there's a pretty successful chance that they're going to get matched to a school is really, really important. So our Office for Student Empowerment and Engagement, that's our OC office. This is another area. They have an event probably every day on campus. Our students can go into, they can get food, they can get mentoring. There's just so many different opportunities that this office really offers, and our students just absolutely love it. So we just are wanting to kind of showcase that we do have a place on campus for students to go to, whether they're wanting to be a part of a certain organization or whether they're wanting to go get mentoring. So I'm going to leave this up. If you guys have any questions, this is our admissions email address. This is our admissions phone number, and then of course the website. You guys are welcome to take a picture of that, and then I will stop sharing and see if you guys have any questions for me.
Hello. You mentioned that one of the missions of UT Southwestern was to help create more primary care doctors. Do you have any specific programs or opportunities geared towards that part of your mission?
So part of the scholarly activity is where we have a lot of students that are getting involved into that area. UT Southwestern is so large that wanting students to go into the primary care, there's a lot of different avenues. We have a lot of faculty that are giving back and taking students under their wing and really wanting to kind of showcase that route. So there wouldn't be necessarily like one specific area that I could say this is how we are doing that. That is just such a huge area, and it is part of the main mission that most doctors, most faculty members there are working with each student, wanting to kind of train them up in that area.
Thank you.
One thing that I will touch on that's not in the PowerPoint, but the state of Texas does require that our incoming class does have to be 90% from the state of Texas. So when it comes down to the residency, that's a pretty important aspect. So when you're talking about a class of 240 students, that does leave 24 spots for what we would consider an out-of-state class. So when it comes to the TMDSAS, they're the ones that actually determine a residency prior to it coming to the school. So when you are first applying, your residency is being determined by TMDSAS. Now, if you are born and raised in Texas and you go to a school for 4 years out of state, your residency is still considered Texas. It's not, you haven't changed a residency because you went to school out of state. So I just wanted to put that out there in case anybody had questions about like the residency, how many spots and things like that. And if you guys have any more specific questions, I am happy to answer that. Okay, Kathy, do you ask a question? Do you have any gap year programs that are geared toward clinical experience? What are your admission thoughts on gap year applicants? We don't have any gap year programs. We don't offer a lot of specific programs out that are outside of, like, we have a couple of pipeline programs, or we have a couple of H preps, but as far as gap year, we would not have anything. However, I will say that our committee does value students that bring experience. And so if you are trying to determine, should I apply this year or should I take a gap year? If you feel that you have a really strong application and you are ready to apply, then we encourage every student to apply. However, if there's an experience or experiences plural that you are able to get during a gap year and bring a different level of maturity, a different level of experience, that is something that is very, very valuable. So it is not looked down upon at all to have a gap year. There are a lot of students that have matured, their application has gotten better. And so we want our students to be able to understand a gap year can be very beneficial to your application. We want you to go into every experience knowing, what can I take away that I'm going to be able to apply to my application at a later time. And so the admissions thoughts on a gap year is that you are probably taking that very serious. You are going into that mindset knowing, I'm going to really value the experiences that I'm doing during this year, so that when I come and if I am granted the opportunity to sit before a committee, to sit before an interview person, I can speak on those experiences and about what I've learned. Do applicants from states that border Texas receive any prioritization in the application process? No, if you're a border state, that doesn't, I mean, you're still technically out of state, so there's not really a prioritization, and if that makes sense.
Jenna, I actually have a question for you, because I don't know how many of our students in this room are in state and how many are out of state. And I know this might not be a question that you can answer, but considering that it can be very competitive for out of state students to get one of those, say, 24 to 30 slots, what kind of like would you potentially be looking for in out of state students? What could our out of state students do to potentially stand out?
You know, there's not anything specifically. I think that's just a hard question to answer. There's not any more weight or less weight that's put on an out of state student. I think a benefit to an out of state student is that we just don't have as many applying. So while the spots are fewer, we don't have as many applying from out of state. So, that is one reason why we are wanting to build up the out of state applicants, is so we can have more students that are definitely interested in not only coming to Texas, but coming to UT Southwestern as well. There have been some years where we just didn't feel like the applications maybe were as strong, and so we maybe didn't fill all of those spots. And so it's not that it's less competitive or that it's more competitive. We want to be able to increase the number of applications that we are getting from out of state. So the same holistic application process, the same metrics would apply across the board.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions?
Hi. Yes, I actually had two different questions, if that's okay.
Mhm.
The first of which is I actually am an in-state resident for Texas, so it's kind of the opposite of the previous question, but how do I make myself stand out as a Texas in-state resident who really wants to apply and go to UT Southwestern? Like, what would you look for in my application that would differentiate me from maybe some of the other in-state residents?
Yeah, so yes, obviously the majority of our applications are going to be from in-state students. The what can I do to stand out question is probably the number one question. One thing that we have really seen recently in students applying is the use of AI and helping write their primary essay. And we're seeing a lack of genuine interest or a lack of genuine expression on the application. So one thing that's maybe not as much about standing out, but one thing that I would deter any students from doing is using any of that to help write your medical motivation. We want to see the students that are the most genuine in wanting to be a doctor. And I think that that's really hard for some students to convey, whether it's on paper, whether it's in person. So my recommendation is for you to start right now being able to express why it is that you want to be a doctor. And if you've never said that out loud, or if you've never written that out, to start doing that right now. We have a lot of students that have never been able to articulate that, or maybe been able to say this was the defining moment of why I wanted to be a doctor, and the rest of my application backs that up. I have experiences to showcase why it is I wanted to be a doctor. These are the things that I got involved in. So that would be my encouragement to you, is to don't compare yourself maybe to others, but just look at your application, look at who you are, why is it that you want to be a doctor, and do you have the necessary timeline to showcase of what you got involved in to kind of back up that interest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I also had one more question on the MD MBA program. I noticed that UT Southwestern has that program, and I really was interested to hear more of like the application for that. Is that something we do preemptively or while we're a student at UT Southwestern? I just wanted to know more about the process.
Yes, so once a student is admitted to the MD program, then the MD MBA, we actually do it in conjunction with another school. So you are eligible to apply for that once you are offered in a spot in the MD class. We also have an MD MPH, and so kind of works the same way. Once a student is actually admitted to the MD program, then you are welcome to apply to do your MD MPH as well. So it's very similar, the MD MBA and the MD MPH. Okay, question in the chat. I have two more final questions. What financial aid resources do you have? You mentioned how rigor of coursework, does this also apply to the due rigor of the majors, one given more academic value than the other? So for the financial aid, we do have a financial aid office. Most scholarships that are given out, they are merit-based. We do have a scholarship committee, and that is decided upon the time that the offer is sent. So we don't necessarily do scholarship comparisons. So if a student was offered a spot at another school, we gave a student a spot at a school, but maybe they received a scholarship. We don't do any type of matching of scholarships. We just, at the time that your application is reviewed, the scholarship committee also is going through applications as well. And so an offer is given out at the same time a scholarship is looked at and given out as well. And then most other financial aid is just going to be coming in the form of a loan. So what we typically like to do is, if you are an out-of-state student, while there is a difference in tuition, each year we try to have what we call out-of-state waivers. And so a student is able to pay the in-state tuition rate. And so that's not necessarily a guaranteed for every single student in every single class. But for the past 3 years that I have been here, every single out-of-state student has been able to get that waiver. So for the rigor of coursework, so we don't have a set way that prereqs or courses are accepted. We accept them online. We accept them from a junior college. We accept them from a four-year school. What we ask students to think about is when it comes to your prereqs, they are a prereq for a reason. And if you were to think about the way that you are going to learn the most and the way that you are going to be challenged the most, in what format or from what setting are you going to learn the most? So yes, while you can take courses online, and while you can take them maybe over a summer setting, we want to make sure that you know the material. So if you are a student that really struggles and you need that face-to-face, you need that one-on-one, maybe taking a 3-week summer term for a prerequisite is not going to be the best case for you. So when we talk about the rigor of coursework, that's not really going to be the same for each student. We feel like every student is different. We're going to be able to tell what type of a student that you are, how dedicated you are to learning based off of what we see on an application, what we see on your transcripts and so forth and so on. So if we see that you have struggled in the past on certain courses, but you're not maybe taking the necessary time to give to the prerequisites, that's going to be something that we would want you to think about. If you are somebody that has struggled and you actually say, look, I retook a course, I sat down, I took it for a longer time frame, I got the one-on-one, I showcased that I did it over a full semester term, that is going to be really important to a committee, and they're going to show that you're really dedicated to that. One major given more academic value than the other, not at all. We have students that have psychology majors, history majors, English. We actually really value a student that comes from a non-science major, just again, because of the experience that they can bring. We don't need every single student that has the same path, the same journey, and the same exact major. We just don't need that. So there's not one major that's going to be given more value at all. Even though research is not required, is extensive research experience still viewed favorably as a prominent research institution in UT Southwestern, right, in a way that would contribute positively to my application. In my time here, there is nothing that has shown on the committee. I would say that the majority of our students do not have research. I would say 80 to 90% of our students applying each year do not have a research area. So if you want to be able to present that, there is a place on the application. But again, the majority of our students do not have that, and they are not seen in a negative way at all. It's just not viewed as part of the application. Okay. Does UT Southwestern consider prior interest or connection with UT Southwestern when reviewing applications? For example, does it look favorable for students who may have done the STARS program during high school and done research over summers at UT Southwestern while they were in college? I'm not sure if that necessarily would be a favorable. I think it's important to note, and I think there is a place on the application that it does ask if you have been involved in that. I think for us, it would just be knowing that you had a commitment to something and you did that over a summer. And I think our committee would want to see that, whether it was at UT Southwestern or not, that would be something that you would for sure want to go ahead and notate. Okay, does UT Southwestern find graduating early to balance academics with practical life experience before medical school favorable or unfavorable? The graduating early is not a problem. You know, again, they're going to take your application and they're going to see, why did you want to graduate early? And if that just gives you more time to focus on your medical enhancements, then did you do that? So again, they're looking at the time that you have free. So some students may have more free time than others. There may be some students that have more family commitments. Maybe some students, they need to work to help support their families. That might give them less of a time to devote to MCAT studying. That might give them less of a time to devote to shadowing. All of that is taken into consideration. So it's not if UT Southwestern is looking at, does graduating early favorable or unfavorable. They're looking to see, what time did you have? What time did you give in as far as giving back to the world of medicine, to learning, to shadowing? What does your application look like as a whole? And there could be parts of that they feel it could have been adjusted in a certain way, or maybe, you know, you could have given more here. So you just want to be able that you're not leaving any, when I mean gaps open, you're not leaving any questions on your application. You don't want to leave the committee guessing as to what you were doing with any free time that you've had. Y'all are asking great questions though. Any others?
There's one in the chat, speaking to why shadowing is important in the committee review process.
So we have surprisingly had students that have come to medical school, and in the past when we didn't value shadowing as much, and they discovered they didn't like anything to do with being a doctor. They didn't have enough experience. They didn't enjoy being with patients. They didn't enjoy any part of it. And so when we went back to look at their applications to see why they were not able to push forward, why they did not want to go forward in the actual process, it all came back to a lack of shadowing. And whenever we sat down with them and asked, you know, do you think that the shadowing would have helped you understand? The answer was absolutely yes. So for us, the shadowing is important for a number of reasons. But we want to make sure that you know, number one, what it takes to be a doctor, and that you are really willing to go down that path. The students that have valued the most have been ones that have even kept a journal or a catalog of their time shadowing. It's one thing to be able to talk about what it takes to be a doctor from a patient experience. If you've just gone to a doctor because you were sick, pretty much anybody can talk about what they think it means to be a doctor. But to spend time shadowing with them, and the more time that you are with them, the more things that you might learn. So the committee really values that time and wanting to be able to make sure that you have that patient experience, that you understand what it's like to work with others, and that it's really important that you want to help others heal. And we have just run into students really not wanting to go down that path. And again, it was because of the lack of patient interaction.
Jenna, I have kind of akin to a follow-up question with that.
Okay.
So usually in the advising office, when we're talking with our students about clinical experience, we tend to differentiate between shadowing and then between what we call direct patient interactions. So anything from, you know, being a candy striper at the hospital, working as an EMT, working in memory care, hospice care, etc. With the emphasis on shadowing, would you say it's still like, if a student is coming in with maybe less shadowing hours, but is making up for that in other ways with other forms of clinical experiences, would that potentially be taken into account?
It would. I mean, I would say that the three main areas that students have on their application are going to be, again, the shadowing, scribing, or like a medical or like a clinical experience, you know, like you are working or volunteering in a setting. And so I mean, we have, if you are employed at a clinic or if you are doing scribing, that can count towards the shadowing. However, the committee is not always viewing like a medical scribe or things like that as a shadowing experience. So all of those are taken into account, but we would not want to see somebody come in with zero shadowing experiences. I would say that on average, if I were to give it a numerical amount, I would say about 100 hours is what we have seen applicants apply that our committee really does like to see. Now, again, that would be the average. We have had students that have given less because they had clinical experiences in other ways. However, it's really important when you're in the interview setting, if you're asked, what did you learn? What do you think it takes to be a doctor? To be able to answer that question. And most students that are able to answer that question genuinely and be able to have a conversation about what it takes to be a doctor, most of them are able to answer from having a significant amount of shadowing. Most of our traditional interviewers that are our faculty, when they interview students and they get answers that are maybe not, they're pretty generic or vague, then going back to look at their application, they're maybe more basic clinical experiences. So they're not deemed for not having shadowing. It's just being able to answer that question of what do you think it takes to be a doctor is a very open-ended question. And we see the higher, more positive feedback is given to those that have a good amount of hours in shadowing. Does that answer a little bit more of your question, Kate?
Yeah, thank you, Jenna. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's pretty difficult and not something, I think shadowing is the hardest thing for students to get into. We have so many different areas and clinics at our school or at UT Southwestern. However, we don't help set those up. And we have students that tell us a lot of times, I'm just having trouble getting in to be able to get any hours. And we do understand that. I mean, everybody's vying for the same amount of spots. We would just say that if you had a connection to a doctor and you were able to go in, whether or not, like, the specialty is not important, because you may change your mind or you may have a certain specialty in your head of this is what type of doctor I want to be. This is the specialty I want to go into. And you may think I need to go shadow a doctor in that area. That's not necessarily important. It's just like changing your major in college. You are probably going to change the specialty that you go into once you become a medical student. So it's more important that you're shadowing and you're getting some shadowing experience, whether or not it's an area that you are interested in, rather than focusing on the specialty itself. How much shadowing experience recommended? It likely varies. Okay, so I think I kind of touched on that a little bit. So yeah, about 100 hours is what we've typically have seen. Again, that can be less, it can be more. If you feel confident in being able to answer some of those questions and be able to be confident sitting in front of a faculty member that is a doctor without having, you know, that significant amount, and you feel like that you really know from your other experiences, then that is okay. That is fine. Again, that's just been our experience in the past.
Last call for questions. We've got about 5 minutes left.
I'm going to put my email in the chat in case somebody wanted to email me directly. The admissions one was on there as well, but I'll just list them both in case.
Best tacos in the DFW.
Ugh, I'm gonna have to say Chilongos. That's our favorite.
All right. Well, looks like we are all out of questions. So hopefully everybody feels, oh, we got one just snuck in right as I was about to say that. UT Southwestern has a pre-med requirement for English classes, but says other expository writing classes may count. So can you talk about the English prereq?
Yeah, so it's kind of, I think I mentioned earlier, but if you have any questions about specific courses, TMDSAS it's going to be kind of the main area. They have like a tool, which I can put that in the chat as well, like a course listing tool. But essentially, it's going to be dependent on what the course is listed, like the course description. And let's see, here's the course index. So most schools do have, let's see, okay, so that's a course listing. So they have a list of basically every course, whether it's English, math, history, that would count. And even if it's not listed, then you can message them. And this would go for every TMDSAS school in Texas. So if TMDSAS accepts that in, then whether you're applying to UT Southwestern, Baylor, TCOM, it would be accepted to them as well. So we just know the reason why we say that is that there are additional English courses that are, maybe it's not labeled as English, but maybe they are like a intensive writing course. And so that can count towards that English requirement as well.
I just had one last question. I was wondering if there were any opportunities or areas maybe through the Office of Admission where we could talk to current UT Southwestern students just to kind of get more of their experience on it, and maybe if we had any questions for them, if that was available at all.
Yeah, so we typically have student panels for students that have applied to UT Southwestern. So we do offer that. So at any point that you're wanting to apply, I guess I should say, you would be able to attend a session. If you're not looking to apply in the next year or two, and you know you're not going to be able to attend one of those sessions as an applicant, then you can email admissions, and I can get you in contact with a current student to help answer some additional questions for you about what it's like to be a current student.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And please feel free, you guys may think of other questions once you leave here, or if some of you were too shy to ask, then feel free to send me a message, again, either in admissions or to me, to my personal email. And I would be happy to answer any questions for you.
I think on that note, we will wrap it up and let everyone go enjoy the rest of their evening. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, UT Southwestern, and that's a wrap.